Yeah, that's good work to what the investment.
So now you have to pay 145%.
Yeah, like that, we let that go for. So tomorrow I have. Thursday I have.
Today's version or tomorrow?
I don't know where we are.
For
So I know it's not or here.
Yes.
I don't remember yet.
I know. It's too a nephew.
Everyone says February.
Can be lucrative.
So I have one that came in somewhere. He's got against everything. He just gave 300 pounds away to people in Jasper Gardener sale. I was so sad to see those 300 pounds off my porch. I don't know if he has seniors. Are you looking for
Good evening and welcome to the May 13th, 2025 Weaverville Town Council Workshop. Tonight is devoted to the budget. We've been discussing the budget the last few meetings actually. But tonight we are going to hear some updates about the budget as well as have the formal public hearing. So in fact what I'm doing right now is opening up the public hearing for the budget and we have one person that signed up and that is Beau Platt.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'm Beau Platt, a member of the Reems Creek Golf Community. I live at Preston Court over in Weaverville, and I'm here to request that the Council and Mayor consider an increase in my property taxes so that Weaverville can continue to provide the environment that attracted my wife and me here to the area. And I'm asking that part of this increase also go to ensure that our town employees receive a generous cost of living increase that will allow them to live here comfortably. So let me give you a background about what attracted us to Weaverville, because we've just been here 2 years. We came for just a one-week visit about 3 years ago, and by the end of the week, my wife said, I want to move to somewhere in the Asheville area. So I said, well, okay. We came about 6 months later just to look around, and we asked a bunch of people, where should we go? We were looking at Black Mountain, we were looking at South Asheville, Arden, all over the place, and everybody seemed to say, really, if you can, you should go to Weaverville. That's the place to go. It's a beautiful town, beautiful people, and great town services. So by the end of that second trip, we had put an offer on a house, and so we made the move 2 years ago, and we never looked back. Happy to be here. We made friends. We love the area. We love Weaverville. In fact, we went out to dinner last night with a couple that just moved here 6 months ago, and they told us the same thing. They moved from Vermont. We came from Florida, so they came from the other direction. But the same thing. They asked around, where should we go? Everybody says, Weaverville. Come to Weaverville. And so we noticed this from day one, it's a wonderful place. And to learn more about the town, we enrolled in the Citizens Academy. So that was enlightening. We got to meet all the heads of the different departments and a lot of the staff, and that was just so impressive, and seeing the dedication and just the professionalism of all these people. And so we rest easy knowing that the departments are managed professionally and it's efficiently, staffed by effective team members. We know the town's administration's solid. We pretty much take for granted that if we have an issue that needs attention, town staff are right on it. So we don't worry about road quality. We don't worry about police fire protection. We love our parks. We love the community center. There's no downside. And we saw the spirit of the town employees even more after Helene. Staff working long hours to restore services, clear roads, ensure the safety of the residents. When they had their own issues to attend to. They looked after us, and I think the town staff treated us almost like we're a family. So I feel it's time for us to do the same thing for our employees. We feel fortunate to live here. We're grateful to the town's employees, and I ask that you vote for a tax increase that will allow us to continue our standard of living. I also ask that you grant the town's employees a cost of living increase that not only offsets inflation, but also allows Weaverville to continue to attract and retain what I think is the best municipal employees in the area, maybe the state. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Platt. I gotta say, in my years as elected official, I think you're the only person who ever asked for a tax increase. Is there anyone else who didn't sign up, or would like to make a comment on the budget? No? You actually will have another opportunity. Next Monday night is the regular council meeting, and you can sign up for public comments at that point. And then we have a budget workshop also scheduled for June the 3rd. So we're going to talk this budget to death. Manager Harris, yes? Oh, thank you. See? This public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the next item on our budget, or on our agenda, excuse me, is updates to the 2026 budget. And we'll start off with Finance Director Dozier.
Our original plan was to give you a little recap of the proposed budget and then have public comments, but I think we kind of went a little out of order. Would you still like the recap? of the
Yes,
proposed
sure.
budget?
Just a recap of what was in the proposed budget was the 37-cent tax rate, which was the 2-cent tax increase with the use of 1.35 million in the fund balance. Our water rate was 5%. There was no increase in our North Buncombe Rural Tax District for the fire side. Requested positions for FTEs, full-time equivalency, was 1 detective in the police department and 2 water treatment plant operators. The proposed COLA was 3%, and the way we did that is, and we can do it as a flat 3%, or we can, in this recommendation, had the equivalence of what that balanced out to, which was roughly $2,100 per employee for equitable distribution there. A merit increase of up to 2%. Our health insurance, we just had our open enrollment meeting, and that was an increase of 3% in that. So the vehicles added for capital was a Ford Lightning truck, which will go to the detective position, leaf vacuum replacement, water system equipment, and generators for a pump station, security cameras, capital projects. Fire apparatus was $300,000, cellular read meters was $100,000, and water line replacement was $100,000. And that was in our for a total of $17,600,281, which is a 5.3% increase. That was in the proposed budget. So what we'll do now is talk about a little bit of revenue and some information that we've been getting from the county and some not so good news that we've been getting from the county. And I'll let Tanya talk about the not so good news.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So the tax assessor always sends us values in February, initial values, and they had warned us then that they're likely to drop. We got another one in April, just before our budget workshop, and it had dropped our tax levy about $67,000, I think. We got another update the 1st of May. This next drop was smaller. It dropped our tax levy about $12,000. And I'm just going to read you what the tax assessor has told us. $12,000 additionally. Reduction in tax revenue. They're telling us our business personal property dropped quite a bit, and Thermo Fisher is a big reason for that. The business personal property makes up a portion of that ad valorem tax. And then with the initial assessment back in February, he said he would expect numbers to trend downward more as we continue to get business personal property list sheets with damage, real estate appeals, and reports of additional damage that were missed during the damage assessment phase. And that's all related to the storm. At this point, we're not expecting another estimate before the adopted budget. We're hoping things kind of level off where they are now. So that's the only update we have on revenue. To talk a little bit about fund balance in the proposed budget, we had proposed using $1.3 million. If we choose to to use a little more of that, I'm comfortable going up to 2 million of that. We know we started the year at 7 million. We've got 3 million appropriated right now in the budget, so we know that's going to drop it to 4. And we know we're going to have a positive variance at the end of the year that's going to add some back to it. And then we're reappropriating up to 2 million for next year. So I think we could still be in that target range if we choose to go up more for this FY26 budget. So on the slide there, you'll see, again, what each penny costs. 1 penny equals 133,500 in tax revenue. The proposed budget was increasing by 2 cents. The bottom right chart there, instead of just showing you what 2 cents does, we're showing you what 3 cent increase and a 4 cent increase does on your property tax. So let's say an average home is $400,000. It's additional $80 a month for a 2 cent increase. That goes up to $120 or $160 if you go up another 1 or 2 cents. Yeah, that's the annual tax
Yeah,
assessment.
not monthly. You said,
Oh, I'm sorry, no, per year.
I told you you were full of bad news.
Not that bad. We've been dealing with healthcare, and everything's on a monthly basis with healthcare. Any questions on that?
So what I heard on our last workshop session after we proposed the 2%, was looking at what does 3 cent or 4 cent increase look like and what else could we fund or recommend to fund. As Tanya mentioned, each additional cent that you go up is 133,500. So if you went up 3 cent to 3 cent, then that would equate to that. And then if you went to 4 cent on that, that's another 133,500 for a total of 267,000. And then using additional fund balance of up to 650,000 to equate to that 2 million off of the fund balance, which gives us a possible $917,000 extra to spend in that. So some of the things I've added into that that we had talked about previously, the garage floor in the police department was $5,000 for some added slip resistance in that area, especially when it gets wet. It is hazardous. A PD replacement patrol car, as you're aware that and have heard some of the discussion, the 2 Chargers that set out back, one of those previously we got information that there was a recall on it, and at that time it could not be repaired. So that's kind of their reserve fleet out there. So one of those would be a replacement vehicle that would allow an officer to have another vehicle, and then their vehicle go into the reserve status at $85,000. Pavement crack sealer to be able to extend some of the life of the roadways. Looking at $85,000 on that. Another added item was a police officer working peak hours, as well as a vehicle for that officer, and that would do some traffic enforcement during those peak hours. And that would be at $165,000. And then streets repaving program, adding up to $577,000. As you're aware, we've not funded our streets paving project the past couple of years, so that gets us to the $917,000 total in that. And again, I mean, you feel free to look at that and add to, reduce, or take away if there's some of those recommendations that you don't feel funded. The other option is that you could remove some of that and move more money toward the streets paving program if you went to the 3 cent or 4 cent in there and dedicate more to that streets repaving and remove some of the other items. Again, that gives you several options in that area. Any questions on that before moving to the next slide? On our next slide, some of the comments we heard, what we've done there is there's $100,000 we had in the budget for water line replacement. We have been assured that with USACE, the grant, that they're going to fund a water line aspect in that. So what we've done is pulled that $100,000 from the general fund that we were using for that aspect with the water fund, and being able to fund some items that were requested but not in that proposed budget. Those items for the fire alarm system out of the water treatment plant, which was $60,000, security system out of the water treatment plant, $20,000, and then for backflow prevention program that we don't currently have in place for $20,000. So that equates to that $100,000. So basically, with that grant, and that kind of offsets some funding in there and give us some more safety measures at our treatment plant as well as in town with that backflow preventer program. You'll notice on that slide is one of the programs with the cellular read meter projects, and at this time, the only thing we're asking for in that was the $100,000 that had already been requested, and we want to continue to study and evaluate that process going forward and look at what is the most economical fees. Right now, we know we're getting that break on a cost for the lack of warranty that's there with those being phased out. But as we move forward, what is our best option, and is that contracting another company altogether to bring those, or continue with the replacement model we got versus looking at the approximately $1 million to be able to do it all at one time? What sources and funding opportunities are there to be able to truly evaluate that program moving forward? And then at this point in time, I'll have Jennifer come up and talk about where we are on grants and seeking additional funding in the grant avenue.
Good evening. When you look at your budget, one of the things I felt was important is to remind you that that's not all the money that you're dealing with. We've got several large capital projects that are being funded with substantial grant funds that the town has been awarded, either through direct appropriation grants from the North Carolina legislature or through Congressman Chuck Edwards' efforts, through some federal funding through EPA grants and the USACE or the Army Corps of Engineers grants. And so I wanted just to remind you of those. And so you've got a slide. I'm not going to read all the way through that, but we are looking at, pulling down funds when we can. We're very mindful that a lot of these dollars are federal dollars, and we're all a little nervous about whether those monies are real monies to us, and we are mindful of that and pulling down just as soon as we can. But for instance, the $14.775 million for the expansion project, the Public Works Department and water folks have had the designs into DEQ back in December. And so we can't move forward without a permit from DEQ, and so we're kind of stuck on that. But what we are trying to do is find some grant funds. For instance, that grant does not cover engineering. So what we're looking at is how can we leverage some other funding, like the EPA grant, to fill in that gap. And so we're hoping that the EPA $1 million grant will fund either the purchase of the generators to reimburse us for those, and pay for some of our engineering costs, neither of which can be used by that $14.7 million. So we're trying to, it's a little bit of a chess match to figure out where we can match up the funding with the various parts of these projects. You'll see several of the FEMA public assistance grants. Staff is still meeting. I think you're down to every other week. There were months of weekly meetings with FEMA to try to make sure that we get all of our paperwork done in order to pull down the FEMA funding for various aspects of storm recovery. Again, a lot of time spent on those in order to add monies to the town to pay for some of these projects, and not just relying on our normal tax revenue and other normal revenue sources to fund these projects, or water rates, for instance. The next slide, that slide was sort of grants that we already have in progress. The next slide is either pending or possible grants. You'll see the first one there is the stormwater projects that Town Council seemed pretty excited about a year ago, for the stormwater rehabilitation, pond rehabilitation, and some bank stabilization in the nature park. That grant was submitted in December, and we expect some decision on that this month. But until we know what that is, we don't know what whether that's a viable project or not. Anyway, a lot of looking for additional monies. Some of them are small amounts. For instance, the next year we're going to be looking at some event sponsorship through the Tourism Development Authority. Even $5,000 would help offset a 4th of July celebration or a holiday parade. And so we're looking at those, but we're also looking at other larger projects related to post-Helene recovery. There's a lot of money out there right now from various sources, and we're attending as many funding seminars as we can to try to identify where we can apply for some money and potentially do some town projects that otherwise might not be attainable. Questions?
We rocked it on the grants this year. Okay, so since I didn't follow the agenda properly, now that the public has heard the recap of the budget, and is there any member of the public who'd like to make a comment at this point? We're going to open up again. Seeing none, we'll move on. Council members, do you have what questions or comments do you have with regard to what you've heard this evening?
Well, I think that the budget that's been proposed is very reasonable. As we all know, we're in a difficult year as far as not always what's going to be regular uncertainty. I would be in favor of a tax increase after this period changes, but right now we don't know how much it's going to affect people that's on fixed income and has limited funds. So I think it's prudent to take and be conservative in our expenditures and taxes this year. Next year, hopefully, we leveled out. We don't know now for 1 month and the next what's going to happen.
So just to clarify, Councilman, you're saying that no more than the 2 cents. You're saying no tax increase.
No, 2 cents is fine.
2 cents, okay.
But I think we should be conservative on not going any further this one.
And of course, I disagree, Mr. Doug. We've set ourselves in a hole. I mean, we're truly in a hole, whether we all want to admit it or not. A 2-cent increase doesn't even pay for the merit, the health, and the cost of living. It doesn't even pay for that. And when we say that the average home, we all laugh and say that we know homes in Weaverville cost more than $400,000. But I've been looking at all the homes in Weaverville for the last 6 months, and there is a lot of homes, believe it or not, that are selling for less than $400,000 right now. Granted, we have some nice homes that are probably worth $800,000, $900,000, $1 million, but it's a small percentage. And so we also have to think about not what we think the home is worth, but what it's valued at. And we all know that they usually value your home less than what you think it's worth anyway. And so even if you had $1 million home and we went up 4 cents on taxes, it's only going to cost the person $400 a year extra. And I know that you're talking about people who are on a fixed income. However, when we've done the demographics of Weaverville, there's only a small percentage, like less than 7% of people who fall under the concern financially. So I would recommend that we do the full 4 cent because we haven't raised taxes in almost 10 years. And I see the hole that we're getting ourselves in. If we have a fund balance of 700 or 7 million, we've taken away 3, leaves 4, and we want to think about ordering this new fire truck. Now we got an email saying that the new quote is 10% more. So now this new fire truck, if we decide to sign off on a purchase order before July 1st, it's going to be $1,650,000, if not more. It's going to show up in 2 years from now. We're barely going to have enough money in fund balance to pay for it, or we're going to finance it and we're going to pay interest on it. And So every time that we keep taking fund balance money, then we're setting ourselves up to, when we buy things, we finance them. When we finance them, we pay interest. And, you know, maybe that's okay, but the next town council that's here, they're not gonna be happy with the fact that over the last 10 years, we've not had tax increases. And they're gonna be looking back at us and saying, you really left us in a mess. As far as the possible taking up to 2 million, I would not think that that's a good idea. I do think that there's some things that we could probably cut out of our budget. I mean, you know, like we've increased our police department every year, I think, for the last 3 years. And do we need this? I'm sure that there's an opinion that we do, but I'm not sure that we do, based on other towns around us. And the other thing that I did an analysis for is I found that I believe Waynesville's tax is 47.9, so almost 48 cents. And somebody else I found was like 66 cents. And the national average is 1.02, and the North Carolina average is 0.82. So if you went half of the North Carolina average would be 41. And we're not even looking to go up to half of the North Carolina average. I mean, if you went 32, wasn't it 32? If you went 35 plus 4 is 39. So, you know, I recommend at least 4 cents, because next year when people are sitting here, they're going to be asking these same questions again, and they're not going to want to go up on taxes because we just went up on taxes this year. We should have went up during COVID and we didn't. We should have went up last year and we didn't. So we've reached the point now to where if we don't go up, shame on us.
Well, you may recall that it's just been in the last couple of years we pulled down the funds balance considerably. Tanya gave me the history on that, and we decided we'd pull it down to close to what was required. We made that decision, and now we're going back to maybe we should have done that. Now, the population of Weaverville is close to double from last year in 5 years. We've got some big projects coming in. I'm not against more tax increases, but I'm saying I don't think this is the year to pull out the complete 4 cents or something like that, because we just have too much uncertainty going on right now in this year.
4 cents is a big jump. Buncombe County's likely to increase theirs just under 25 cents. So if we're looking at, you know, if we were to do 2 cents plus Buncombe County, we're at 5 cents right there. Now, I don't know how much increase people want to take on all at once.
Remember also, next year will be the revaluation.
Right.
So that 2 cents will be a bigger number as well.
I think we can assume that this year's got as a lean year, and in hopes that next year should be, our 2% is going to be much bigger in terms of dollars.
Well, if we don't go up on taxes, what can we cut out of this budget and not take the 2 million? Because the 2 cents does not even cover raises and health insurance. So that means we're using fund balance for everyday operations. Fund balance should be for big pieces of equipment. And the thing, you have a savings account for an emergency fund. We keep sucking our emergency fund down.
So I think the staff would probably like some direction. They need to make a decision on where to set this. How many of us are comfortable with 2%? 2 cents, I'm sorry, 2 cents. How many are comfortable with more? So the majority says 2 cents, but there's 3 people who say it can go higher. How many of you are comfortable with, say, 3 cents?
I would go 4, but I'll take 3.
Is there, by nod of head, is 3 cents comfortable for folks? It doesn't seem so.
So 3 cents on a $400,000 house takes people up $10 a month, $120 a year.
It seems like the additional expenditures are very reasonable, and to cover some of those costs, more than 2% really needs to be considered. Maybe the paving program could have a little bit less money than it. And the 3% would work to get some of it.
I think we have to move forward and take a bigger bite out of the apple now, because we don't know that the apple's gonna be here much longer anyway. So, the uncertainty in our government writ large is something that we have to consider. And that means the bond project. Where are we gonna be then?
I don't know how we plan around that. There's no, I don't know that there's a contingency plan, a what-if plan, because there's just no idea what that's gonna be.
Yeah, we don't
You know, my question is, if we approve a budget, we approve say 2 cents, and we don't have, police and things that we need to have, and then somewhere throughout the year, it is working out, we can make changes to it, is that correct?
But you have to lay people off when you make changes.
Well, you don't have to lay people off to make changes.
Well, you have to pay for a fire truck if you already have a purchase order out there for it. So then you get a loan and you pay interest. You can do that. But a lot of the cities around us, they're not hiring or they're letting people go because they don't have money in their budget. I don't want to be that. I don't want to lay people off.
Yeah, I don't want to lay people off either. I think there are other alternatives.
Actually, we are, looking at some of our colleagues around our region, we're actually in better shape than many of them are. So this is a good discussion. Many people are having much harder discussions than what we're having now. So I think the staff needs direction here. It sounds like a mixed bag of ideas about tax increase.
Well, there's 3 of us that are okay with going up, sounds like 4 cents. We just need one more.
Or we could compromise at 3.
We could compromise at 3.
That wasn't the vote, though. The vote was 4-3.
What, pardon me?
I said the vote wasn't, let's see how many are okay with 2% and how many are okay with 2 cents and 4 cents, and then we meet in the middle. 4 people already said 2 cents. I mean, that's what a vote is.
That was a nod, I thought.
A nod, that's what,
That was
it was a
a
nod.
nod.
It was a informal, raise your hands.
So it sounds like let's hope for the best on our general fund, because it sounds like 2 cents is the where everyone's at least comfortable. Is that correct? Yep. Okay. And any other comments or questions?
Do you want to go any higher on fund balance
No.
for this next year?
So does that mean that we're back to the original page? If we're back to 2 cents, then can we go back to the original page of fund balance request? And not include all this other stuff? Is that what that means, is that we're right back to the first page?
Yes, we're back to the proposed budget that the manager proposed last month. And it just doesn't include any of these possible expenditures that we,
Were there any other changes to the budget since we talked last time? I know we talked about the steps, the handrail to the steps.
Yes.
I mean,
we're-
that's just a minor cost that we imagine for the safety feature.
Yeah, we're working on that out of our current year. So, I'll be in the quote.
Out of
on
our
that.
current year.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
I've been able to try to finagle and rob Peter to pay Paul to go ahead and get that safety measure taken care of.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes.
Any others? Any other comments or?
I do have one question before you adjourn, but I want to let y'all get through with it first. Just for a point of clarification on the rescue truck, because Last time what we asked was for a consensus to go ahead and post the 2 positions at the water treatment plant and ask if there was consensus to move forward on the rescue since there was no budgetary impact as far as paying anything up front. And at that point, we felt like that was the census you wanted to go. Afterwards, there were several questions, so I didn't pull the trigger on that. I wanted to because I didn't feel as good about it at that point in time, but I have reached back out to the vendor. Some vendors do have a price increase every quarter, so I reached back out to try to find out what it was. He said there's been a $10,000 increase since our last quote, because the quotes are good for 30 days. He said, but they do expect a 3.5% increase is expected just on the chassis alone coming soon. So again, if you want us to move forward with the rescue, we can sign that and get a price locked in that can't be changed without, and still not owe anything until it gets here in 2.5 to 3 years time frame on that. But you do go ahead and lock in that price now before the next price increase.
So why don't you describe to people, Scotty, how, so what would happen is when their truck is delivered, we have to cough up $1.7 million, which the general fund is not going to like to have that.
Right.
So what would be your funding plan to do that?
Right now, keep doing like we're doing is setting aside that $300,000 to keep rolling over year after year with replacement apparatus, because every year that the apparatus aging in the fleet, and then with the build times the way they are getting longer, as you're aware, the one that we ordered 2 years ago hasn't even started production yet. So if you wait and put it off, so okay, we'll wait till next year to purchase or sign the contract, then you're putting that not only a year behind, but 5 to 6 years behind when you do that. So and obviously prices increase every quarter. So what you could have bought 2 years ago, for example, that truck that we paid roughly 1.1 for 2 years ago, about the 2 years before that, it was around $700,000. So so those are, as you see, the longer you wait, the more that price increases in there.
So if we set aside $300,000 a year, how many years do you anticipate this would be, the truck delivery would be?
Well, it's going to be a continuous cycle, because that 300 that is currently in there is for the engine that was ordered for 2 years ago.
Right.
So that we're using that money to go toward that. So it's going to be a continuous cycle in that. And so we still got the rescue truck that is rescue, the engine, and the ladder were all bought during the same year. So once you cycle through the rescue process of it being ordered, then the ladder would be next up on the replacement schedule. And the ladder, you're looking at probably 2.3 to 2.5 currently right now. And you thought just Tanya was going to have all that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, and so what happens is, when you run out of the emergency piggy bank fund balance, then you have to start financing things. And if you don't have money, it's hard to finance things, right, Tanya?
You get better rates when you have money in your account, you'll get a better rate.
And so maybe, since we don't want to go up on taxes, maybe we should just push this out to the next council and let them decide next year whether or not they want to order a truck.
If we order a truck now and place the order for it, does that cost us anything now?
No, not anything else. You don't start making any payment until the truck.
Until it's delivered.
It's
But you lock
700
in
a
the
day.
price.
And so we're locking in the price, and it's not costing us anything.
Correct.
Is that price protected from
Yes.
market changes in
Even
materials?
sheet metal or anything like that, if it changes, they can't go back and charge you for that. There are some vendors that do, and that's the purpose of locking in that contracted price.
I'm trying not to use that word.
Yeah, no. It's out there.
Because, and even when we bought the last one, that was what I put specifically in the contract, was to make sure that there was no cost occurrence just because sheet metal goes up in 4 years when my truck finally goes to production, then now, we shorted ourselves, that you're going to in turn put it back on the consumer. And so that clause is in any contract that I will agree to on any vendor.
And another thing is, Tanya, how long would they let you finance something like that? 10 years? Because I calculated that if you finance that truck for 10 years, the payment's like either $23,000 or $28,000 a month. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. We paid off our other apparatus a few years ago, and we were paying about $300,000 a year on the current truck and the fire station. I'm not sure about the term of it.
It's about 25 a year.
We'll be collecting more property taxes then.
And it might be a combination. We might have enough to put like a hefty down payment or, pay down
Yeah.
a big chunk of it and have to finance the rest.
We'll have more homes on that, not property taxes because of the tax increase, but because of the additional construction that will be done in 2 or 3 years.
I do worry about the, well, not worry, but, common sense would say, if the tariffs keep going up the way they are, it's highly possible that some of these homes that we think are gonna come in won't be coming in as fast as we think, because developers will either they just can't do it. Like, one of the things that I'm finding now, new homes, believe it or not, like a Horton home out on Aiken Road is selling for $199 a square foot, which is crazy because Weaverville usually brings about $300 a square foot. But if you've got all your money tied up in something, you got to sell it. So that's another thing that will skew the value of a home in Weaverville, is because people are dumping stuff now.
Any other comments or more direction? So just to recap, the council says keep the property tax increase at 2 cents, and pretty much go with the proposed budget as you originally had. Is that correct?
And order the rescue truck.
Not the best we try. Successful at the cup. Any other questions or comments or direction? All right, well, we'll see you all on Monday at our regular council meeting right back here. And if there's nothing else, we're adjourned.